Hi, I'm Emma. I'm a senior marketing student at Northwestern University, and I've always been the quiet one in my family. But at my brother's engagement party 3 weeks ago, my own parents tied me to a chair and humiliated me in front of 50 family members over what they claimed was a prank. What they didn't know was that someone very important was watching, and what happened next would change everything. You know that feeling when you walk into a room and instantly know something's wrong? That's exactly what hit me the moment I stepped into the Fairmont Hotel ballroom. The chandeliers were sparkling, white roses everywhere, and my brother Jake was beaming next to his fiancée Sarah. But the way my mother's eyes locked onto me, the way conversations seemed to pause when I appeared, I should have turned around and left right then. "Emma, finally," my mother said, her voice carrying that sharp edge I knew too well. "We were beginning to think you weren't coming to your own brother's engagement party." I was exactly on time. I'm always on time. But pointing that out would only make things worse, so I just smiled and hugged Jake. "Congratulations, big brother. Sarah, you look absolutely beautiful." Sarah gave me one of those tight, fake smiles. "Thank you, Emma. Though I have to say, that dress is interesting." I looked down at my navy blue cocktail dress. Conservative, appropriate, nothing flashy. But Sarah had this way of making everything I did seem wrong. Jake had proposed to her 6 months ago, and ever since then, I'd become the family's designated problem. The first hour went normally enough. I chatted with cousins, complimented the decorations, and tried to stay out of everyone's way. That's when I decided to help clear some plates from the appetizer table. I was carrying a stack toward the kitchen when it happened. The top plate slipped. Just a little wobble, nothing dramatic. But as I tried to catch it, my elbow bumped into Sarah's champagne glass on the nearby table. The glass tipped, sending champagne splashing across the white tablecloth and onto Sarah's pale pink dress. "Oh my God, I'm so sorry!" I immediately grabbed napkins, trying to help. "It was an accident. I can pay for dry cleaning. You did that on purpose!" Sarah shrieked, loud enough for the entire room to hear. "You're so jealous that Jake chose me that you're trying to ruin our party." "No, Sarah, I swear it was an accident. I was just trying to help clean up and—" "Enough!" My father's voice boomed across the ballroom. Conversations stopped. Every single person turned to stare at us. "Emma, what is wrong with you?" "Dad, I didn't do it on purpose. The plate slipped and I was trying to catch it." "She's lying," my mother announced, marching over with that look of righteous fury I'd seen 1,000 times growing up. "This is exactly the kind of attention-seeking behavior we've been dealing with for months. She can't stand that Jake is happy." I felt my cheeks burning. 50 pairs of eyes were staring at me like I was some kind of monster. "Mom, please. It was just an accident. Why would I purposely spill champagne on Sarah?" "Because you're jealous," Sarah said, tears streaming down her face. "You've always been jealous of what Jake and I have. This is just like when you accidentally broke my jewelry box at Christmas." That jewelry box incident was completely different. I'd been helping her move it, and the handle broke off in my hand. But now wasn't the time to relitigate Christmas. "I think," my father said in his courtroom voice, he's a prosecutor and he knows how to command a room, "that Emma needs to learn there are consequences for deliberately disrupting important family events." "What do you mean?" I asked, but I was already backing away. Something in his tone scared me. "Jake, could you bring me one of those chair ties from the gift table?" my mother called out. "Mom, what are you doing?" I looked around desperately. "This is insane. It was an accident." "Actions have consequences, Emma," my father said. "Maybe if you'd learned that lesson years ago, we wouldn't be dealing with this kind of behavior now." Jake approached with what looked like ribbon or rope. I couldn't tell through my panic. "Dad, isn't this a little extreme? Maybe we could just—" "Your sister needs to understand that her constant drama queen act won't be tolerated anymore." My mother cut him off. "Especially not at important family events." "I'm not a drama queen," I protested, but my father was already grabbing my arms. "Dad, stop! You're scaring me!" "Sit down, Emma." His grip was firm, directing me toward one of the ballroom chairs. "Right now." The room was dead silent except for Sarah's sniffling and the sound of my own rapid breathing. I sat down because I didn't know what else to do. My father held my arms while my mother and Jake used the ribbon to tie my wrists to the chair arms. "This is how we used to handle tantrums when you were little," my mother announced to the room. "Some people never outgrow the need for discipline." I was shaking now, tears streaming down my face. "Please don't do this. Everyone's watching. I'm 22 years old. This is humiliating." "Good," my father said. "Maybe humiliation is what it takes to get through to you." Then my mother did something that still makes my stomach turn. She grabbed the microphone from the DJ booth. "Everyone, I want to apologize for my daughter's behavior tonight," her voice echoed through the ballroom. "Emma has always struggled with jealousy and attention-seeking, and apparently she thought it would be appropriate to sabotage her brother's engagement celebration. I wanted to disappear. 50 people, cousins, aunts, uncles, family friends, Jake's future in-laws, all staring at me tied to a chair like a child having a tantrum. As you can see," my mother continued, "we're handling the situation appropriately. Emma will remain there until she's ready to apologize properly to Sarah and Jake for deliberately trying to ruin their special night." "I already apologized," I called out, my voice cracking. "It was an accident." "Still lying," my father shook his head sadly. "This is exactly what we're talking about, folks. Emma can't take responsibility for her actions." That's when I saw him. Uncle James, my father's younger brother, standing near the back of the room. He'd flown in from Seattle that morning, and I hadn't had a chance to talk to him yet, but the look on his face. I'd never seen Uncle James angry before. He's usually the calm, quiet lawyer in the family, but his jaw was clenched tight and his hands were balled into fists. He started walking toward us, his expensive suit cutting through the crowd of gawking relatives. But my mother was still talking into the microphone. "We've tried everything with Emma, therapy, tough love, setting boundaries, but she continues to act out whenever the spotlight isn't on her. Today, everyone gets to see exactly what we deal with at home." Uncle James stopped walking. He was about 10 feet away from me, close enough that I could see the muscle in his jaw twitching. He pulled out his phone and started recording. Why was he recording this? "Please," I whispered to my parents. "Please, just let me go. I've learned my lesson. I'm sorry about the champagne. I'll pay for Sarah's dress. I'll leave the party. Just please untie me." "Not until you admit you did it on purpose," Sarah demanded, stepping closer to my chair. "Not until you tell everyone that you're jealous and you wanted to ruin our engagement party." "But I didn't do it on purpose," I said quietly. "I can't admit to something that isn't true." "Then you'll sit there all night," my mother announced. "Maybe by the time this party is over, you'll be ready to tell the truth." The worst part wasn't being tied up. It wasn't even the humiliation of 50 people staring at me. It was the way everyone just accepted it. My aunts and uncles went back to their conversations. My cousins returned to the dance floor. Jake and Sarah posed for more engagement photos, with me tied to a chair, visible in the background of several shots. Only Uncle James stayed frozen in place, his phone still recording, his face getting darker by the minute. I tried to think about something else, anything else. I thought about my grandmother, about how she used to tell me stories about standing up for yourself when the whole world seemed against you. Grandma Rosie had immigrated from Ireland with nothing but a suitcase and a pearl ring her own grandmother had given her. That ring was supposed to be mine someday. Grandma had always said I reminded her of herself, stubborn and strong. But I didn't feel strong tied to that chair. I felt small and broken and completely alone. Except for Uncle James, who was still watching, still recording, still looking like he was about to explode. The party went on around me for another hour. People ate dinner, gave toasts, danced to the DJ's music. A few relatives patted my head as they walked by, like I was a misbehaving child rather than a college senior who'd accidentally spilled champagne. "This is for your own good, Emma," my Aunt Carol said, squeezing my shoulder. "Your parents are just trying to help you learn accountability." "We all know how dramatic you can be," my cousin Mike added with a laugh. Remember last Christmas with the jewelry box? It was like living in an alternate reality where accidentally breaking things made you a terrible person who deserved public humiliation, where being quiet and helpful somehow translated to jealous and attention-seeking. Finally, as the party was winding down, my mother returned to untie me. "Have you learned your lesson?" she asked loudly enough for nearby guests to hear. "Yes," I whispered, because I just wanted to go home. "And what lesson is that?" I looked up at her, at my father standing behind her with his arms crossed, at Sarah smiling smugly nearby. Then I glanced at Uncle James, who was still recording everything. "That accidents aren't acceptable in this family," I said quietly. "That's right," my mother nodded approvingly. "Accidents are usually just carelessness or lack of consideration for others, and in this family, we take responsibility for our carelessness." As she untied the ribbons, my wrists were red and slightly swollen. I'd been sitting in that chair for almost 2 hours. My back ached, my legs had fallen asleep, and my face was sticky from dried tears. "Now apologize to Sarah properly," my father commanded. I stood on shaky legs and looked at Sarah, who was waiting expectantly. "I'm sorry your dress got champagne on it," I said. "And?" Sarah prompted. "And I'm sorry I ruined your engagement party." "Because?" I took a deep breath. Uncle James was still recording, still watching, still looking furious. "Because I was careless," I finished. "Good girl," my mother said, patting my arm like I was 5 years old. "See how much better things go when you just tell the truth?" As guests started leaving, offering congratulations to Jake and Sarah and pointedly ignoring me, I caught Uncle James putting his phone away. He walked over to where I was standing. "Emma," he said quietly, "are you okay?" It was the first time all evening that someone had asked me that question. The kindness in his voice almost broke me all over again. "I'm fine," I lied, because that's what you're supposed to say. "No," he said firmly, "you're not fine, and neither was what just happened here." He glanced around to make sure no one was listening, then leaned closer. "I need to talk to you, soon. There are some things about your grandmother that your parents haven't told you." Before I could ask what he meant, my mother appeared at my elbow. "James, thank you so much for coming. I hope Emma's little scene didn't ruin the evening for you." Uncle James looked at my mother for a long moment, and something passed between them that I didn't understand. "Actually, Margaret, I think we need to have a conversation. All of us. Very soon." "Of course," my mother said brightly, but I caught the flash of nervousness in her eyes. "We should definitely catch up while you're in town." "Yes," Uncle James said slowly. "We definitely should." As I drove home that night, my wrists still aching and my pride completely shattered, I had no idea that Uncle James had recorded everything. I had no idea about the phone calls he was about to make, or the legal documents he was about to review, or the truth about Grandma Rosie's pearl ring that was about to turn my family's world upside down. All I knew was that something had broken inside me that night, something that might never heal, and that the way my family had looked at me while I was tied to that chair, like I was the problem, like I deserved it, like my pain didn't matter, that look was going to haunt me forever. Have you ever been made to feel like you're crazy for reacting normally to something completely insane? Have you ever had your entire family gaslight you into believing you're the problem? Leave a comment and tell me your story, because what happened next is going to show you exactly why standing up for yourself sometimes means standing completely alone. The next morning, I woke up with bruises on my wrists and a text message from Uncle James that would change everything. "Emma, can you meet me for coffee today? There's something about your grandmother's belongings that we need to discuss. Don't tell your parents yet." I stared at that message for 10 minutes. Uncle James had always been the family peacekeeper, the one who stayed out of drama. For him to ask me to keep secrets from my parents meant something serious was happening. We met at a small cafe downtown, far from anywhere my family might randomly show up. Uncle James looked like he hadn't slept. His usually perfect lawyer appearance was rumpled, and there were dark circles under his eyes. "Emma, I need you to tell me exactly what happened before the champagne incident," he said without any small talk. "Everything you remember." So I did. I told him about helping clear plates, about the stack slipping, about my elbow bumping the table. He listened without interrupting, occasionally taking notes on his phone. And you're absolutely certain it was an accident? Uncle James, I swear on Grandma Rosie's grave, I would never deliberately hurt Sarah or ruin Jake's party. I was trying to help clean up because that's what Grandma taught me to do, always help the hostess. His jaw clenched when I mentioned Grandma Rosie. Speaking of your grandmother, Emma, when was the last time you saw her pearl ring? The one she always wore? The question caught me off guard. The pearl ring? I don't know. I haven't really thought about it since the funeral. Why? Uncle James pulled out his phone and showed me a photo from last night's party. It was Sarah, posing for engagement photos, and there on her left hand, next to her new engagement ring, was a delicate band with 3 perfectly round pearls. My blood ran cold. That's Grandma's ring. But how did Sarah get it? That's what I intend to find out, Uncle James said grimly. Emma, I need to ask you something, and I want you to think carefully before you answer. Did your grandmother ever talk to you about her will? About what she wanted to leave you? The memory hit me like a punch to the chest. I was 16, sitting in Grandma Rosie's kitchen while she made her famous apple pie. She'd taken off the pearl ring to wash dishes and held it up to the light. This ring, she'd said, came from my grandmother in County Cork. She gave it to my mother gave it to me, and someday, Emma girl, it'll be yours. You're the one who listens to the old stories, who remembers where we came from. Promise me you'll pass it on to your own granddaughter someday. I'd promised. Of course I'd promised. She said it would be mine, I whispered to Uncle James. When I turned 25 or when I got married, whichever came first. She said it had been in our family for 4 generations. Uncle James nodded slowly. I was afraid of that. Emma, I need to show you something, but first I need you to promise me you won't do anything rash. Can you promise me that? I nodded, though my hands were already shaking. He pulled out a manila folder and slid it across the table. This is a copy of your grandmother's will, the real one, not the version your parents showed the family. The document was thick, official-looking, covered in legal language I didn't understand, but I could read the highlighted sections clearly enough. To my beloved granddaughter, Emma Catherine Sullivan, I leave my pearl ring, my hope chest, and the sum of $50,000 to be held in trust until her 25th birthday or marriage, whichever occurs first. To my granddaughter, Emma Catherine Sullivan, I also leave my house at 1247 Maple Street to be transferred to her name upon her graduation from university. The words swam in front of my eyes. $50,000. Grandma's house. The ring that was currently on Sarah's finger. I don't understand, I managed. My parents said Grandma left everything to them. They said she only left me some old books and photo albums. They lied, Uncle James said bluntly. Emma, your parents have been stealing from you for 3 years. They've been living in your house, they've been using your inheritance money, and now they've given away your ring. The cafe suddenly felt too small, too hot. I couldn't breathe properly. But why? Why would they do that? Because $50,000 is a lot of money, and that house is worth at least $300,000 in today's market. Your father's been struggling financially since his law practice started losing clients. Your mother's been spending money they don't have on keeping up appearances. Uncle James leaned forward, his voice getting quieter. Emma, I was the executor of your grandmother's will. I've been trying to reach your parents for months about transferring your inheritance, and they keep making excuses. After what I saw last night, I finally understand why. What do you mean? They're not planning to give you anything. They've been hoping you'd never find out about the real will. And last night, when they humiliated you in front of the entire family, they were setting up a narrative. What kind of narrative? That you're unstable, dramatic, untrustworthy. If you ever tried to claim your inheritance, they could point to incidents like last night and say you're not mentally competent to handle money or property. The pieces were falling into place, and I felt sick. The jewelry box at Christmas. They made such a big deal about me breaking it accidentally. and last summer when I supposedly lost Mom's necklace, but it turned up in her jewelry box a week later. They've been building a case against your character for months, Uncle James confirmed. Every accident, every mistake, every normal 22-year-old behavior, they've been spinning it into evidence that you're irresponsible. I thought about all the times my parents had called me dramatic, all the eye rolls when I got emotional about anything, all the comments about how I needed to grow up and take responsibility. They'd been gaslighting me for years, and I'd believed them. So what happens now? I asked. Uncle James smiled for the first time since we'd sat down. Now we collect evidence, and Emma, I want you to know, I recorded everything that happened last night. Every word your parents said, every moment you were tied to that chair, everything. You recorded it? 47 minutes of footage, and I wasn't the only one. Your cousin Mike's girlfriend was live streaming parts of the party on Instagram. She caught your mother's speech about you being unstable and dramatic. It's all there, Emma. Everything we need to prove they've been systematically destroying your reputation. Over the next week, Uncle James and I became a two-person investigation team. I searched through old family photos and found dozens of pictures of Grandma wearing the pearl ring, proof that it had been hers, not something my parents bought for Sarah. We discovered that my parents had been paying their mortgage with money from my inheritance account. We found emails between my mother and Sarah discussing the ring, with my mother saying, "Emma will never know the difference." The hardest part was pretending everything was normal. I had to sit through family dinners where my parents talked about how proud they were of Jake and Sarah, how beautiful Sarah looked wearing her grandmother's ring. They'd actually told her it belonged to my mother's grandmother. I had to listen to my mother tell neighbors about my episode at the engagement party, how they were getting me help for my emotional problems. But every lie just made me more determined. I started carrying a small digital recorder that Uncle James gave me. I recorded my mother telling a family friend that I'd always been troubled and that they were considering having me evaluated by a psychiatrist. I recorded my father discussing with Jake how they might need to protect Emma from herself by limiting her access to money after graduation. They were planning to have me declared mentally incompetent. My own parents were going to try to take away my legal right to control my own life, all so they could keep money that was never theirs in the first place. The breaking point came 2 weeks after the engagement party. I was helping my mother clean out a closet when I found a box labeled Emma's Inheritance, MISC items. Inside were the books and photo albums they'd told me were my only inheritance, but at the bottom was something that made my heart stop. Grandma Rosie's hope chest key. I'd forgotten about the hope chest. Grandma had always kept it locked, saying it contained family treasures that would be mine someday. My parents had told me they couldn't find the key after she died, that whatever was inside was probably just old linens anyway. But here was the key, hidden in a closet like it was something shameful. That night, I snuck back into my parents' house. My house, I reminded myself, and found the hope chest in the basement. Inside were documents that took my breath away. The original deed to Grandma's house with my name already filled in, bank statements showing the $50,000 inheritance account, and a handwritten letter from Grandma Rosie addressed to me. "My dearest Emma," it read, "if you're reading this, then I'm gone, and you're probably wondering about your inheritance. I've left you everything because you're the only one who truly understands family, who values the stories and traditions that make us who we are. Your parents are good people, but they've always cared more about appearances than substance. You're different, Emma girl. You have the strength to carry our family's legacy forward. The money is yours, the house is yours, and most importantly, the ring is yours. Don't let anyone convince you otherwise. You are worthy of love, respect, and everything good this world has to offer. Your loving grandmother, Rosie Sullivan." I sat in that basement and cried until I couldn't cry anymore. Then I took pictures of everything and texted Uncle James. I found it all. Every document, every proof we need. They've been lying about everything. His response came immediately. "Jake's wedding is this Saturday. Are you thinking what I'm thinking?" I was. Jake and Sarah had moved up their wedding date, claiming they couldn't wait to start their lives together. But I suspected they were rushing because they wanted to make sure Sarah got to keep the ring before anyone could question its ownership. "How do you feel about giving a speech?" Uncle James texted. "I've never been more ready for anything in my life," I texted back. The next few days were a blur of preparation. Uncle James had lawyer friends who helped us prepare legal documents. We organized all our evidence into a clear timeline. We practiced what I would say, how I would say it, and what we would do if my parents tried to have me removed. But the most important preparation was emotional. I had to accept that after Saturday, my relationship with my parents would probably be over forever. I had to accept that Jake might choose them over me. I had to accept that I might walk away from that wedding completely alone. Uncle James kept reminding me that I wasn't just fighting for money or a house or even a ring. I was fighting for the truth. I was fighting for my grandmother's wishes. I was fighting for my right to exist in this family without being constantly torn down and rebuilt according to their needs. "Emma," he said the night before the wedding, "I want you to remember something. Your grandmother saw something special in you. She knew you were strong enough to handle whatever came next. Tomorrow, you get to prove her right." Saturday morning dawned clear and bright. I put on my navy blue dress, the same one I'd worn to the engagement party, and drove to the church where Jake and Sarah were getting married. 200 people were expected, including all the relatives who'd watched me get tied to a chair 2 weeks earlier. As I walked into the church, I could feel people staring. I could hear whispers about poor Emma and whether I'd cause another scene. My parents were greeting guests near the front, playing the role of gracious hosts whose troubled daughter might or might not behave herself today. Jake looked nervous when he saw me, like he was afraid I might object during the "speak now or forever hold your peace" part. Sarah was radiant in her white dress, Grandma Rosie's pearl ring catching the light as she posed for photos. I sat in the back, Uncle James beside me, and waited for the ceremony to end. Because what I had to say wasn't meant for a church. It was meant for the reception, where everyone would be gathered together, where there would be microphones and witnesses, and no easy way for my parents to make me disappear. The ceremony was beautiful. Jake and Sarah looked happy. For a moment, I almost felt guilty about what I was planning to do. But then I caught my mother pointing me out to someone, shaking her head sadly and saying something about hoping Emma keeps it together today. No, I was done being ashamed of existing. I was done being the family scapegoat. And I was definitely done letting them steal my inheritance while painting me as the crazy one. As we moved from the church to the country club reception, Uncle James squeezed my hand. "You ready for this?" I looked at the crowd of people who'd watched my humiliation, who'd accepted my parents' version of events without question, who'd let a 22-year-old woman be tied to a chair because she accidentally spilled champagne. "I've been ready my whole life," I said. The reception was in full swing when Uncle James made his move. He'd volunteered to give a toast as the brother of the bride's father-in-law, a relationship complicated enough that no one questioned his right to speak. He waited until after dinner, after the champagne toast, when everyone was relaxed and happy. "Ladies and gentlemen," Uncle James said, standing up with the microphone, "I'd like to take a moment to talk about family, about truth, and about a very special young woman who's been through more than anyone should have to endure.